Hi, Erin.
Hi.
It's lovely to see you, and thank you so much for joining me for a little chat today because we're just having a little talk, aren't we, today about our experiences talking about love because we thought it would be really interesting to share that as it's been quite an interesting journey, hasn't it, in terms of talking to people about love and their responses and their reactions to that word and that concept in a professional context. So I suppose I'm going to start off by asking you, Erin, like, had you really spoken about like love before in any of your roles? I suppose because you were a young inspection volunteer with the care inspect, weren't you? So was love ever anything that kind of came up in conversation in your role?
Not really. It was something that as young inspection volunteers we were trying to introduce. Some of the inspectors were more comfortable with this than others. I think it was just about traditionally, and they're looking at a place of safeguarding the children. There was only one inspector that I ever worked with who would let us ask the young people, "Do the adults here love you?" Um, But often what we would try and do is just look for observations between the relationship with the adult and the young person when we were in inspecting and just get a bit of a feel for the house that way. But no, it was something that was a new concept to myself as well when I was coming into this role.
Yeah, I think for me, because I worked in sort of psychology and that, so I knew about love and attachment, but again, it was the word itself, love, that was something that I'd never really used in that professional context before. But I think when we came into the project, there was already a lot of stuff going on in the Scottish sort of care landscape where, Nicola Sturgeon has spoken about that we should come together and love our children who experience care and stuff. So I guess there was already conversations going on, wasn't there, about the importance of love. But we knew that in our project we were going to be exploring that in a lot more sort of depth and detail. So
Definitely.
I'm just wondering, like, how how did how did it make you feel when you first started talking about love?
Initially, I'll be honest, I probably felt a little bit uncomfortable asking the young people, "How do you know the adults love you? Do you feel loved in this house?" etc. But that was just more about my own personal values and rather than anything else. But when I came into Aberlour, it was evident really, really quickly that the young people were loved by the adults, and it was something that the young people were really comfortable talking about with the adults. And I guess for me, it was just more about the learning of me trying to build that relationship and get to a place where I felt comfortable talking about that with the young people. And actually, when we done some of the sessions, they were more comfortable talking about it with the adults that they had a relationship with rather than me, who was a bit of a stranger. So that was something that was a key sort of finding for me was that the relationships are just so important and that actually it's quite difficult to push the young people to talk about a topic that's so important and so massive. And as well, it's different for all of us. You know, love is so different for each individual person. So that was quite difficult initially when I first like came into the role.
Obviously, we've done loads of work with other professionals, in our insight sessions and doing training sessions and stuff. How do you think other professionals from other organisations who work within the care system, what's their response been to what we talk about in terms of love and the importance of it for children and young people who've experienced trauma or who are experiencing care? How have they responded to what we talk about?
I would say out with the Aberlour organisation, there has been a little bit resistance sometimes when we've been doing training, and I think that's more about an organisational like stance rather than individual people. And something that I've always thought is that the love has to come from the leadership and management, and if that's not coming from there and being filtered down, and the staff are a lot more resistant to talking about love, people are a wee bit scared around the language and using that. And it's a whole new concept to them. So there's a wee bit fear of the unknown to them. And particularly during some of the training sessions, some adults have spoken about how they have the fear of giving young people false impressions or false hope, etc. And it's not always about saying, I love you, it's about making that child feel loved through other ways.
I suppose that's why we've always tried to talk about love in that bigger, broader way and make it feel more safe, you know? So it's like everybody feels this, everybody experiences this. It's a human experience, you know? That's a really interesting insight, Erin. Thank you so much. Do you feel like in the 3 years that we've been doing this, that there's been a change in attitudes? Can you see it? Or do you feel like it's not quite there yet?
No, definitely. I have seen a change. I would say that there's obviously a lot, a lot more longer way to go. But that's always going to be the case, and we're always going to hopefully want to continue and improve. But I definitely have seen changes in that, particularly with the care inspectorate as someone who was a young inspection volunteer. Just the work around what's been going on in there. That's just one specific example that I can think of, but um, definitely have seen a lot more change. One thing that's really important to reflect on is that I know a lot of this change came about from like the First Minister's aims and ambitions, but I think beforehand there was also a lot of good work going on, and there was a lot of change happening, and a lot of organisations, really did want to embrace that, and it wasn't just because sort of this policy had been put in place or guidance, and it was more about them wanting what's best for the young people. And I think that's something that's really, really important to recognise as well as the reasons behind why we're doing it.
Thank you so much for sitting and chatting to me today, Erin, and we will catch up again really soon.